At the end of Spider-Man Far From Home, we get a shocking reveal.
Spider-Man's name is Peter Parker.
No, not that one, but this one.
You gotta tell me.
This then begs the question of how long has Nick Fury been a Skrull? Secret Invasion is Marvel's next big project, and it only makes sense to explore this question in the lead up to Secret Invasion. Now, even a Skrull Nick Fury would want you to subscribe, so subscribe right now.
Really quite touching.
For the benefit of those who don't know what Secret Invasion is, it is an event in the comics where the Skrulls, these
green son of a gun,
have infiltrated Earth disguised as some of the most recognizable heroes, which then leads to a whole conflict down the line. And soon we'll be getting a live action version of this show. But why is it such a big deal that Nick Fury is a Skrull?
Tell me why!
Maybe because he is probably one of the most important people in the Marvel Universe without superpowers. Before we begin deducing how long Nick Fury has been a Skrull for, we need a quick recap of Nick Fury's journey in the MCU. We first see him in Iron Man, recruiting Tony to join
your super secret boy band.
Then after a while, all is good. We then see him bring together the Avengers to fight Loki. Then shock, Nick Fury dies.
But not for long!
It turns out that Nick Fury had faked his death. Then we see the fall of S.H.I.E.L.D., so Nick Fury loses all, if any, power he had at that point.
Now I know nothing.
I missed the part where that's my problem.
He then shows up for a little bit in Age of Ultron, but it was long enough for it to cause controversy. More on that later. Then he's absent in Civil War through to Infinity War, and then shows up in the post-credit scene of that movie, where he summons Captain Marvel using the pager that she gifted to him at the end of her solo movie. This is the movie that changed everything we know about the MCU with the introduction of Skrulls. But it's fine, they're the good guys, right? Now onto the scene that caused this whole video to be made in the first place. We see that Nick Fury, throughout the events of Spider-Man Far From Home, was in fact Nick Fury's Skrull friend Talos posing as him, whilst Nick Fury was too busy sipping cocktails and losing his shoes on the Saber space station, which is the MCU version of the Peak from the Marvel comics. This threw everyone off, because Nick Fury is one of the most trusted and influential humans in the MCU, and for him not to be a human being changes everything. This then leads to the question of what events was Nick Fury a Skrull, and for which ones did he sit back on the sidelines for? One of the biggest weeks of Nick Fury we see on the big screen is aptly named Fury's Big Week. This is basically that one week where the events of Thor, Iron Man 2 and the end of Captain America First Avenger all take place in the lead up to the Avengers movie. Now Fury is almost definitely capable of being at all of these places at once.
I'm nice like that.
Because he has access to all the resources. But it is also likely that maybe it is possible for him to have had a Skrull imposter taking up the role whilst he's away in the other side of the country. But it seems very unlikely for Nick Fury to actually require upon a Skrull assistant during this time, because this would have required government backing.
But given that it's a stupid-ass decision, I've elected to ignore it.
However, he loses said backing in Winter Soldier after the fall of S.H.I.E.L.D., where we also see him die. Now in this movie, they say that they slowed his heart down so much that it seems as though he is dead. But knowing Nick Fury, he could have also just been lying, since he is a master of deception. Oh wait, no, that's the wrong character. And perhaps it was a Skrull imposter that had been killed, because Fury could have been aware of the fact that there was a plot to kill him. Now this scene in Age of Ultron is what caused the most controversy after the release of Captain Marvel. Let's watch the scene closely.
Making any headway.
Did you catch it? Let's watch it again. Did you notice how Fury cuts his toast diagonally? Now why is cutting toast such a big deal we needed to pick up on? Well, because in Captain Marvel we also hear him say,
toast is cut diagonally, I can't eat.
So does this mean that the Nick Fury we see in Age of Ultron is a Skrull? It would also make sense. If we look at Nick Fury's involvement in the movie, he's pretty much there to berate the Avengers over losing Ultron, and then shows up in the nick of time. See what I did there? To provide helicarriers for the Avengers to move the survivors of Sokovia, meaning that Nick Fury could have been off dealing with something else whilst the Skrull version of him was there to help out. Because it doesn't require any of Fury's actual clearance to deploy, besides just telling them to launch the helicarrier. After this, we don't see Fury till Infinity War and Endgame. Now, the Fury we see in Infinity War may actually be a Skrull, since the other one of Fury's pet peeves listed in Captain Marvel is that he won't respond to being called Nick. But then we see Maria Hill scream Nick at the top of her lungs when they're about to crash.
We'll meet him at...
This could be purely out of fear and her being careless and calling him Nick, or perhaps there is something deeper within there. But it seems very unlikely, since the main Fury is the only one we know with access to the pagers, and Nick Fury isn't that stupid to give the pager with connections to Captain Marvel to the Skrulls, despite the Skrulls and Captain Marvel having a good relationship. But it is unlikely that they switch places for this. We also see Nick Fury at the end of Endgame at Tony Stark's funeral, but even Nick Fury isn't that cold-hearted to skip out the funeral of Tony Stark.
I'm nice like that.
After that, we see him throughout Spider-Man Far From Home, which we know he was a Skrull throughout. So how many times was Nick Fury actually a Skrull in the MCU? Maybe once or 1.5, because that half comes from the so-called death in Winter Soldier and Secret Invasion. We see Nick Fury spawn in to fight the Skrull invasion, so we will get true confirmation as to who was the Skrull the whole time. My bet's on Brody. Check out this video and subscribe.